Hey everybody, it's Andrew again. Welcome to 4.2. Let's get right into it. Last class we learned what the box model was using border, margin, padding, and content. So for our do now today, we're going to try to create what we see here on this slide. So I'm going to open it up 1 second. So do take some time to complete this on your own. I'm going to pause it right here, and then I'm going to quickly go over the do now. So you can pause it right now, and then we are back. We're going to actually just go over the do now really quickly. So we're going to look over here to our left. We see that we want to change the background color of the green content to green, and then the blue content to blue. So I'm going to go here, type in background, background color, green, and then that turns to green. Quick thing that I like to do is just copy this, just change this to blue. All right, so we did number one. Next, we want to give both the H2 elements a padding of 25px. I'm going to look here at my CSS. I see that we already have a selector there of H2. That's perfect. Add the 25px. Great. So then now we have padding to both of our H2s. And then also we want to do margin of 30px. And then over here for our fourth one, we want to give only the green content of border of 5px, solid and light green. Remember, border has 3 values. 5px, solid, light green. Perfect. And then blue, we're going to also do a border, but we want this one to have 10px dashed and light blue. Almost done. Last one here. We want to change all of the text to white. So in this case, since the text on the only text on the page is H2, you can just actually go into the H2 at the selector and just change that to white, and voila, we're done. If you completed this, then congratulations, you know how to do 4.1. So today we're going to get into 4.2. All right, let me share my screen here. Okay, so now today we coders will use div elements to group and organize elements on a web page. Our vocabulary for today is parent element, child element, nesting, and div element. So you probably are wondering what the heck is div. So div is an HTML element that kind of contains other elements. So to demonstrate, when we look at this set of code over here, we see that we have like a div, and we gave it a class of a dog container. And what you see here in Peach is what the div actually is on the page. And then you can see that we have 2 more lines of code inside of that div. And I'll get more into that in a second. But the key thing to know here is that the div is kind of like a container of sorts. So when we look at divs on a page, you can think of them as like just empty boxes on your web page, and it allows you to kind of group and organize different HTML elements that are on the page. So for example, if we're looking at this image over here, think of like this blue line, like this outer line, as like one big div, and then think of these salads or whatever they are as like smaller divs inside of that big div, right? So they're just empty boxes that kind of fit into your your page. And they don't really have any default styling. You can do a lot of what the div looks like in your HTML. If you want to change a few things, you can do that as well in your CSS. But the key thing to know is that they're just empty boxes on their own. So let's actually look at what divs look like on the page. So first things first, we're going to have like our body tags. Our body tags are just the entire web page. And then, as you'll see here, we have a div named header, and that's just going to organize like one part of the page, and then we move into the other sections over here. So when we're looking at what the header is and what it looks like on the page, that's what it is. That's like the div is just like creating that section on the page. So say you only want the top third of your page to be yellow, and you want that to just have like its own vibe, then that's what you're going to need to do. You need to create a div for that section. Same goes for a middle section. Say you want to put pictures of some cute dogs, you can do that. And then also now you can have a footer. So the key things to know here are each section on the page is divided by a div. And so that's that's the purpose of the div is to make your layout of your page just more unique. And so not everything is just like one thing on your page. So if you see here, the gallery, that's like what that div in particular is doing. If you want to actually take a look at our actual website on conation.org, you can even pull it up right now. We use divs all over the website. So if you'll see up here, this section over here at the top, that's a div because we wanted to make an announcement about what we're doing for COVID, and we named that div top bar. If you can guess, the next div is going to be right here. We name that menu. And then over here, the next section, header, body. And if you notice, like down here, there are two sections. So what we did was we created a big div, and then within that div, we created two more, right? So we wanted to be able to uh, have sections within that div. And that is when you are taking smaller groups and putting them inside of bigger groups, that's called nesting. So a really key word here, I'm going to be using it a lot. Nesting is when you can have multiple like divs within bigger divs. This is so you can create sections like this. So when we're using nesting, it's really helpful when we're like trying to create layouts for different pages, and we'll be doing a lot of that, particularly in this unit. And honestly, like throughout the rest of your coding journey, you don't want dull looking pages. You want to have some sections, and to be able to do that, you have to use divs. So when we nest HTML elements inside of another HTML element, we're creating what's known as a parent-child relationship. So you're probably wondering, like, what the heck does that mean? Basically, when we're looking here, when we created the div class header and we closed it with a closing div tag, that right here is the parent, and inside here are the children. So parent tags are usually like the first thing that you see, and then whatever you see on the inside, usually when it's organized well and in a clean way, there's an indentation here, and it kind of shows that this is like they're a child to the parent. So we have also been seeing nesting before. We just didn't know what it was called. If you can spot out where we have actually used like nesting and parent-child relationships, yeah, feel free to let me know. Think about this line of coding and see like where you see parent-child relationships. And if you're taking note of the colors, you can actually kind of get a head start of like what is actually going on. We see here the HTML. This is like the first tag that you see like on a web page. That, or actually you don't technically see it, but the way that it's organized is organized in a parent-child relationship. So HTML is the grandfather, grandmother of everything here, and then we have here the head, and the head closing tag, and then the child of the head is the title, and then also here for the body, same thing. The unordered list is the child to the body, and then the list item is the child to the unordered list. So the key things to know here are nesting is really a part of how we code in HTML, and it allows, as long as you are able to see like who the parent and the child is, then you'll be able to kind of read your code pretty easily. So one thing that we're going to do here is that I want you to actually see like what it looks like in practice. So I'm going to take a moment to show you all. So um, we want to group the H1 and H2 elements into their own div. So I'm going to go to the HTML. I see that there is no div tag, so I'm going to hit enter right here. Put div. I'm going to give it a class of, and you can name it whatever you want. Maybe first. All right, let's just say header. And just because you can name it anything you want doesn't mean like you should just name it something weird. You should name it something that's relevant to where it is on the page. That way, it's just easier to see or to change in your CSS. So we created a div. Doesn't look like a whole lot at the moment, but now if we styled it and use different properties that we've learned, you'll actually be able to see exactly where the div is. So right now, you don't see anything. I'm going to actually X out of this so you can see this fully. So we named it header, and since it's a class, we want to put a dot before it. So header, opening curly bracket. Okay, so maybe border 10 px solid and red. So now you can actually see on the page where the div is. Notice that it's like a section just like at the top of the page. It's in between, it's in combination of the H1 and H2 that we already have. Then say if I wanted to add padding, all that stuff is here. It's only changing that up there. One more thing that we have to do down here is we have two tiger images, and we want to create a div for them as well. So let's create the div. We're going to go here. Notice how I'm still keeping everything organized. Div, let's just say pics because they're the only pics here. I'm going to hit indent. Down here, I'm going to close it. You can't see anything now, but actually, yeah, you actually have to look at it at this page to be able to see it. So when we created a div, I didn't put any border or anything on it, but what I did was I put both of the images in the same section. So you can imagine that this section is just like around here. And so that's what creating a div will do for you on your page. And yeah, those are the main things that you should know about divs. So then now let's move into our independent practice. So again, this is that website that you created for last class, the animal shelter, but you want to make it a little bit better than it was. I know you all did a good job last time, but let's actually make it even better. So I'm gonna open up the pop code. So we want to first begin by nesting like the first H1 and H2 elements inside of a div, and we want to name that header. If you want to look into your HTML, you're going to see the H1, the H2. You know what to do there. Let's create a div and name it as a class of header. Make sure that you are putting your opening div tag and your closing div tag. And remember, closing div tags have that slash after the first angle bracket. And then you're going to move into just styling that header a little bit more, adding the different properties that we went over last class. And then you're going to do the same thing for this section over here. That's H3, the P, and the image. You want to create another div tag for that. And then also for the remaining part of the page. And if you have extra time, feel free to make it real nice. Maybe add divs with inside of divs. Make it fancy. And yeah, once you're finished with that, you know what to do. Create a snapshot. Click here to copy it. That copies the link. It will take you to Google Classrooms, and then you can submit that. So that's everything for today. About divs, we're going to be getting a lot of practice with it over the next couple classes. So no need, if you're feeling a little about it right now, we'll definitely get a whole lot more practice. So the basic thing that you all should know is how to make a div, how to use div elements to group and organize elements on your web page. The exit ticket for today: which of the following correctly nests the paragraph that says egg inside the carton of div, right? So, you want the egg to be properly nested inside the div. Yeah, y'all see it. Anyway, thank you all for joining. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to your volunteers or your program manager. And we'll see you next class. Take care.